Is drinking raw milk safe like RFK Jr. suggests? Can you reduce a glucose spike if you eat your food in, quote unquote, the right order? I'm registered dietitian Abby Sharp. I host a nutrition myth-busting podcast called Bite Back with Abby Sharp. And those are just some of the questions I tackle with qualified experts on my show. There is so much food misinformation and disinformation out there, and it can feel impossible to know what's real and what's BS. On Bite Back, my goal is to help listeners create a pleasurable relationship with food, their body, and themselves, which in my opinion is the fundamental secret to good health. Listen to Bite Back wherever you get your podcasts.
Trump bolts from the G7 to deal with the war in the Middle East, and no signs of a deal with Canada. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It's an early exit for Donald Trump, the U.S. president, back in Washington now after leaving the G7 summit early, saying he has to deal with the situation in the Middle East and the war between Israel and Iran. In the last 24 hours, Trump has made a series of posts on social media about the conflict, saying, quote, "I gave Iran chance after chance to make a deal, but they couldn't get it done." Adding, quote, "The United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and Israel has a lot of it." He also said, quote, "Israel or Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon," and, quote, "Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran." Does that mean the United States is about to join Israel in its war against Iran? Speaking to reporters on Air Force One after leaving the G7, Trump repeated that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon and that he's not looking for a ceasefire, just that he wants it to end.
You just posted right before we took off that you're not leaving because of a ceasefire. Why are you? Can you elaborate?
We're not looking for a ceasefire. I didn't say I was looking for a ceasefire. That was Emmanuel, nice guy, but he doesn't get it right too often. But we're not looking. We're looking for better than a ceasefire.
What specifically is better than a ceasefire? What are you looking for here?
An end, a real end, not a ceasefire. An end.
So something that will be permanent.
Or giving up entirely. Is that okay too?
Are you close there? Is that possible? Is that possible in the next 24 months?
Why not? Certainly possible. Complete give up. That's possible, yeah.
Trump said being back in Washington will allow him to be well-versed and that he did everything he needed to do at the G7.
What you in Canada? Just be a little bit, I think, more well-versed. Not having to use telephones so much because I don't believe in telephones. Because people like you listen to it, you know. So being on the scene is much better. And we did everything I had to do on the G7. We had a good G7. We signed a deal with the European Union, phase one of a deal, but we signed a deal with the UK. And the UK is really great. We're very far down the line with a lot of deals. I mean, look, we're actually finished with every deal if you really think about it, because all I have to do is say, this is what you're going to pay.
Israel continues to pound Iran, and Iran continues to retaliate, launching hundreds of missiles and drones at Israel. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Iran not just a threat to his country, but also to the United States and the world.
I mean, to have these mad mullahs who are committed to destroying us in order to destroy you, to say that they should have nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles to deliver them to you, and to say that that's not your interest. Well, we're fighting this war. We're taking the action. America is supporting us in defense, deeply, deeply appreciated. But this is a threat to the entire world. It's a threat to Israel, as I said, to our Arab neighbors, to Europe, to America. They chant death to America. It's though this is not your business. This is not myopia. This is utter blindness. I mean, sometimes you have to take a stand against evil. And that's what the American people instinctively understand, most of them, I have to say. And that's what President Trump understands.
Back in Kananaskis, there had been hopes of a breakthrough between Canada and the United States. on a deal about trade and security. That has yet to materialize. Instead, what there is an agreement to continue negotiating with the hopes of coming to an agreement within the next 30 days. Dominic LeBlanc is the Minister of Canada-U.S. Trade.
I think it's an extension of an ongoing conversation that the leaders began when we were at the White House in May. We've also agreed with the Americans not to discuss the details of these conversations and the inevitable back and forth around different ideas and different scenarios. Publicly, the important thing is that we collectively think we're making progress in coming to a deal that would be in the economic interest of both countries, but we're not there yet, and that's why we reconvened after the meeting with the President and the Prime Minister, and we agreed to reconvene before the end of this week again.
With Trump back in Washington and with no Canada-U.S. deal at this G7, where do things stand with tariffs, especially after Donald Trump said yesterday he's a tariff guy? Kirsten Hillman is Canada's ambassador to the United States.
We have a president who is very convinced of the policy that he has around tariffs in order to achieve some of his policy goals. We are very convinced that applying that policy to Canada is actually detrimental to his overall goals, and we are trying to get there with him and his officials so that they understand our perspective.
What about all the talk from Trump about Canada becoming the 51st state? Hillman and LeBlanc are refusing to say if that even came up.
Did the president bring up any allusions to still annexing Canada, domination, economic? Did he bring that up at all during these meetings?
The president is very respectful of the Prime Minister and of Canada. He spoke many times about how much he likes it here, how much he likes Canada.
How happy he was to be in Alberta.
Yeah. How beautiful he thought when he was in that.
Not that he wants to make it a 51st state. Did he mention that?
We're not going to go into the private details of the conversation. Our focus was on the economic opportunity of working with the United States, and that was the conversation that the Prime Minister had.
With or without Donald Trump, this summit is wrapping up today, and Prime Minister Carney will have a closing news conference later today.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
He is continuing his European adventure this week. We are reaching Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University on a Greek island in the Aegean Sea called Santorini. How are you this week?
I'm doing very, very well. Sadly, it's coming to an end. I have to return home this weekend. But nonetheless, it's been spectacularly beautiful in the Aegean. This is the home, of course, of the ancient Greeks, of Plato and Aristotle and Pythagoras and all those mathematicians and so forth. So it's been a lifelong dream. And the weather is just out of this world. The water is blue, 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 and the sand is white, 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 and the temperature's 30, and there's no clouds and there's no rain. I mean, it's just idyllic. It's just perfect. And people are friendly.
Well, that's good.
Wonderful.
That's good. I know you're tuned into the news, nevertheless, because you're just built that way. So we have the G Summit is happening, wrapping up today. Still no deal between Canada and the United States on trade and security. Really, just an agreement to try and keep working on a deal and maybe have something to sign in 30 days. There was some reporting that a deal was imminent. So, what do you think about this development?
I've been reading, as you've noted, because I have high-speed internet, of course. I bring my computer with me, and so I read my National Post, Globe and Mail, Toronto Star, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post. Read them every morning. It takes me a couple hours to get through it all. I do believe that the government of Canada is negotiating behind closed doors with the government of the United States. And I do believe they have, the technocrats, the bureaucrats that are doing the negotiation. I have no doubt that both Carney and Trump have set the broad parameters in those private meetings that they held, saying, here's the broad outline, where we want to see progress. I don't mean that they went into the nitty-gritty, but I'm sure they certainly told their own people, their own minions, their own bureaucrats, this is where you're not going to go, this is where you're going to go. This is the broad, big picture. The fact that it's taking longer than they thought, I don't think it'll be on something like tariffs. I mean, everybody agrees that tariffs have to go. I mean, Trump himself has said, I'm using tariffs to get you to get rid of your tariffs. So he's basically acknowledged it, even though he uses them. I think it's getting more. I'm sure it's probably going to be much more tricky on things of national security because we don't. Canada has historically, as we know, and I'm talking post World War II, we have often diverged from the United States. We didn't, Pearson didn't support the Vietnam War, and Chrétien didn't support I think it was Iraq, and so the issues of national security are probably trickier. And then finally, and very quickly, Rob, I think there's probably some of those protected industries are still going to be problematic, meaning that the Quebec government and all three parties, all five parties have said we're never going to get rid of supply management, which I just think is a travesty, where we continue to exploit millions of Canadians with double the price they would otherwise pay for milk and dairy and eggs. But that may be a sticking point because Trump may be saying, look, you don't get rid of that, you're not going to have a deal. So this is probably elongating the deal, but I do believe at the end of the day, we will have a deal because it is in the self-interest of Canada and the United States, but even more so Canada because we're 1/12 the size or something like that. We're only 2.4 trillion, they're 30 trillion. To put it crudely and bluntly, and I know it makes people angry, we need the United States far more than the United States needs us.
Okay. So when it comes to things that could be holding up a big breakthrough and actually getting a deal done, you pointed to supply management. What other obstacles do you think there might be?
Oh, I think the Telecom Act is that prohibits Verizon from coming into Canada and all the other telecom companies. I'm sure these industries, these protected industries, and about a third, according to the Fraser Institute, using StatsCan data and trade data, about a third of our private sector is protected to some degree, not at 100%, but to some degree. And those industries that are protected, they love their protectionism because what it means is when you have less competition, it means you can jack your prices up. This has been known for 250 years. If you want lower prices, you open up the markets to lots and lots of competition. And so I find that people have, for years and years in our country, have spoken out of both sides of their mouths. We saw it with the grocery store just in the last 2 years. Everybody say, we want lower grocery prices. And by the way, we're not going to open up our industry. Same with supply management. So, we speak out of both sides of our mouths. We want lower prices, but we don't want to allow foreign competition in itself at airlines or cell phones or banking or supply management. And we are still, I'm hoping that Carney is going to use his leadership, his podium, the bully pulpit, as Theodore Roosevelt called it, to bring Canadians along and say, look, we can't suck and blow anymore. Those days are gone where we can say we want lower prices, but we're going to try and protect our economy from competition that weakens us. And I've been arguing, Rob, as much as I can in my media, the protectionism is an Orwellian phrase. And it's really dishonest and a corrupt term used by all our politicians. Protectionism does not protect us. It hurts us. It discriminates us. It screws us. It shafts us with higher prices because they keep out competitors.
All right. When we come back, we'll talk about the Liberals' Bill C-5. This is the Projects in the National Interest Bill. It's getting a rough ride. From the left and the right, it looks as though the Conservatives, however, will ensure its passage, but we'll ask you about that when we come back. Prime Minister Carney has a bill to fast-track projects in the national interest, Bill C-5. It is getting criticism from both the left and the right. The main issue is that it's moving too fast. It runs roughshod over too much other legislation. I mean, it's not very often you get the same sort of commentary from both the pages of the National Post and the Toronto Star. But what do you think about these concerns, Professor?
I understand why both the Toronto Star and the Post are making these arguments. I do understand what they're saying. They're saying it's going to suspend basically due process, and it's going to suspend all kinds of laws. It's incredible the number of laws that have all of these, I'll call them delays, embedded in them. And this didn't happen yesterday morning. I'm not blaming Justin Trudeau all by himself. This has been going on literally since the early 70s, I would say since the first Trudeau administration, slowly, incrementally over the last 50, 60 years, whatever that period of time is. Successive parliaments and successive governments have built in an incredible amount of red tape and delays in a myriad, dozens and dozens and dozens of bills and laws. And so everybody understands what I'm talking about. Things like the duty to consult and the duty to hold up a project because there's some endangered snail or species of animal in one part of the country that allows them to go to court and stop the entire project for the country. What's happened as a consequence, and this is what Carney's responding to, which is what I also understand, is we have become known as the country where nothing can be built. Nothing can be developed. We have the no pipeline bill. We have the bill, the consultation bill that created such high standards of consultation and review, environmental review. You cannot get a mining project developed. You cannot get a pipeline developed. You can't get any major project developed. So this is the backlash to the last 70 years of it's been a failure of governance, in my opinion, in the federal level, to embed in multiple laws, multiple avenues that allow environmental groups, indigenous groups, opposition groups, anti-development groups to go to court and delay. And I mean years and years and years. The best example of all, Ring of Fire. We know there's, I believe, billions of dollars of critical minerals in the Northern Ontario. For 35 years, they've been trying to build a road. They can't even build a road. Forget a mine. Forget extracting the resources. So
Right.
What Carney is doing is C5 it's using a sledgehammer. Let's be very clear. This is not a finesse. They're using a sledgehammer to say, we're going to suspend all these bills. A better solution would be to say something along the line, and I think Harper posed this about 10 or 12 or 15 years ago, where he was going to amend the environmental law that said everybody has 12 months from the time the project is announced. You have 12 months to kick at the can, so to speak, to challenge it, to probe it, to demand to be consulted. But you cannot go year after year saying, okay, you consulted, now I want to be consulted next year, and after you've consulted next year, I want to be consulted after that. Sine die indefinitely into the future forever to delay economic development. That must end, and this is a first step. I'm hoping they amend it somewhat, that Carney amends it, to put in some kind of finality on all of these, some kind of an omnibus bill that says all these bills, with all of these due process checks and balances, you have 12 months or 18 months or 24 months to have your day. And then after that, it's over. You cannot continue to delay, no matter if it's a railroad or a pipeline or a bridge or a road or a sidewalk or whatever.
Okay. All right. We will wrap up our conversation there for this week. And we wish you all the best on your continued summer sojourn there and safe travels back to Canada.
Thank you. I'll be talking to you from Ottawa next week. Thanks very much, Rob.
I know. He laments. Okay. Thank you so much. Professor Ian Lee with the Sprott School of Business.
The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is time for our Newsday panel. Ashton Arsenault is back with us, partner at Crestview Strategies. Welcome back, Ashton. Great to hear from you today.
Hey, Rob. Good to be here.
And Jeff Turner, Vice President at Blue Sky Strategy Group. Welcome back, Jeff Turner.
Hey, Rob. How's it going? Nice to be with you and your listeners.
Very good. Very good. Long time no talk. Great to have you back today. Let's talk about the G7 summit. Final day today, but still no deal between Canada and the United States on things like trade and security, despite reporting that an agreement seemed imminent. Jeff Turner, let's start with you. What do you think of the latest developments on that particular aspect?
I don't think it's anything different than what we've been seeing kind of around the horn with the trade situation that Trump is sort of putting upon all these other countries. It's a deal to have a deal. We had 90 deals in 90 days. That didn't come to pass. They had a deal with China to have a deal about a deal in the deal future. And here's Canada's turn to now have a deal 30 days from now. I think the reality is for Canada, the longer this goes on, Donald Trump does lose some of his political capital every day. And the closer we get to those midterms, the better position that Canada would be in, or any country would be in, to be able to secure better terms than yesterday. So I don't think in our grand strategy it's actually a bad thing to have a bit more time. And I think just the challenge, though, is going to be, will we have another deal to extend the deal 30 days from now, or will we actually be able to find a common ground? And tariffs, of course, are the center of that equation. You heard the president say it himself yesterday. He's a tariff man, but Canada needs to make that case that tariffs are a drag on both economies and his economy especially, and that Canada isn't just some other country or some other chump out there that he can do this and not feel the repercussions locally.
Okay. Ashton, why do you think there's no deal so far?
Yeah, I agree with most of what Jeff said, although I'll say generally about the G7, I'm going to have to book a trip to Kanaskas because it looks really good. I've never been there. They did a good job setting it up. But, look, as Jeff said, on security and trade, it does appear that we're now working in a 30-day window. Not a ton of time to hammer out something that's obviously pretty comprehensive and consequential. So if they do stick to that timeline, I'd be impressed. Look, I think everybody's more or less getting to the same page at this point. I think a deal with the Americans is in the best interest of everybody, Americans, Canadians, the political classes in each country, everybody. And so the faster this can get done, the better. I think everyone is eager to put the last sort of 5 or 6 months behind them at this point. So hopefully something does get hammered up.
Okay. Jeff, what do you think could be holding things up? Could it be something like supply management in agriculture, for example, or something else for that matter?
I think tariffs, as I said before, is probably the big thing holding it up. But I think Ashton sort of touches on an important point, which is, as we sort of wondered, Trump negotiated CUSMA back in his first presidency. The rug was pulled out from us. We all know that history. And we sort of said, well, what good is another deal if the last deal wasn't held together? And I think what's becoming increasingly understood, I think probably both at a government level, but also out here in the population, is that I think what the Americans seem to really want is a deal that isn't just a trade deal. It's a security and trade deal. And it broadens that envelope out to include things that are very important to them. And that's not just for Canada, that's Mexico as well, if they do find their way into that in a more meaningful way. So I think that's probably, we may end up with, a CUSMA 2.0 that actually is very similar. And what's actually the change is adding on that security and defense dimension that, effectively pays for the trade deal or sort of opens the door for it going forwards. And, I think that's, to me, that's a difficult thing to do. There's the commitments that have just been recently made on NATO commitment. We know that commitment's going to have to go up again. But I think, to me, that's the sticking point rather than any one sector, as you mentioned, like agriculture.
But do you think just on that, that was a big news story last week, of course, hitting 2% NATO spending targets on national defense in this fiscal years instead of by the year 2032. Do you think that was done in the hopes of securing a breakthrough, maybe even at this G7 summit? What do you think, Jeff?
I would just say absolutely. Whether it was for this particular summit or whether it was for in the medium term to try to move that negotiation forward, it was. And I think it was also, we have the NATO meeting coming up later this month in Brussels as well, and widely expected to see that 2% grow to 3 or 3.5%. So I think it was just Canada also trying to catch up to not be even further behind should that number move up in the near future. And I think widely Canadians are supportive of that. And I think that's a big change that we've seen in the last year. And this government's making good on it.
Okay. Ashton, what do you think could be holding things up, and how does spending on national defense factor into all of this?
I think it's a myriad of things, right? Like I think it's, ongoing back and forth with respect to tariffs. I think it's the broader security situation across the globe at this point in time. And I certainly think the commitment made last week sort of hopefully moves things along. I mean, it's no secret Canada's been a laggard for an awful long time. Most people aren't comfortable after successive years of not holding up their end of the bargain. It looks like we're about to sort of at least attempt to make that right. So, these things, quite frankly, don't happen in a vacuum. These are very complicated and in-depth discussions. And so it's not something that usually gets drawn up in the back of a napkin. So I'm sure there are more than 1 or 2 factors that go into actually getting us to the other side, Rob.
Right. Okay. Elbows up, elbows up. Everybody got those elbows up. During the election campaign, Mark Carney spoke in very stark terms about Canada's relationship with the United States because of Donald Trump and all the talk about the 51st state. And he basically said this relationship as we once knew it is over. And now we see Mark Carney wishing Donald Trump a happy birthday and saying, well, welcome you. Thank you for your leadership. We couldn't have this meeting without you. All this talk about elbows up, was it all just an act? All this tough talk, just an act? Whatever happened to elbows up? Ashton, what would you say?
Yeah, look, I think at this point it'd be fair to say that Carney was perhaps more talk than walk with respect to pushing back on the United States. And, frankly, much of his sort of charged commentary came during the campaign period and lead up to it. So that's not entirely surprising. I think there are very few wins to be had there outside of the election window. And you can make a pretty solid argument that the sole reason Carney won the election is because he was seen as the better leader to deal with Trump. So, Canadians, for a myriad of reasons, really resonated with this sort of elbows up slogan. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now elbows down. And to his credit, the Prime Minister isn't really hiding it. He's now signaling that it's time to make a deal, put the noise behind us. I think that's frankly good news for Canada. And he doesn't really seem to be paying a political price for doing this either. So, look, they're even floating around joining the Golden Dome project, which, would have been insane even a month ago. So despite the bluster and politics of it all, I think Canadians understand that our relationship with the U.S. being over would be a bad outcome for Canada. So in my opinion, it's time to act accordingly.
Okay. More talk than walk, according to Ashton, when it comes to elbows up and all the tough talk against Trump during the election campaign, and now it's more elbows down. What would you say, Jeff Turner?
Well, for a new politician, I think the Prime Minister certainly did a very good job of reflecting Canadians' feelings and desires through that campaign, and I don't think it's gone away. I think, one of the things that I've been kind of mulling on is that, number one, always parse the politician's words. The relationship as we knew it is over. And I think there's a broad consensus still that Canada had become too reliant on the United States. We had become too reliant economically for our security. We had just sort of automatically folded in behind them on most things. We relied on them to do things for us, even without asking nicely or doing our own thing to pull our weight. And that's the era that's over. But it's not just relative to the United States. The solution to that, and this is what the Prime Minister has talked about consistently and is doing now in his opening flurry of activity, is trying to build up our own resiliency, build up our own autonomy, fix our own house, masters in our own house, but also fix our own problems, of which we know there are many, and certainly this program talks about quite a few of them a lot. And I've been thinking of a bit of a corollary in the idea of an era being over. Think about the U.S. post 9/11. I've been reading these pieces of people, Gen Xers especially, or boomers who grew up in that era of like the seamless border. You just walk across, you go to the bar, you pick up groceries, the border officer would wave you through. We didn't do it, obviously, but, 9/11 changed everything for the United States. They said, hey, look, we're now feeling threatened. We need to do things for ourselves, and we need to protect ourselves, and then everything changed in that. Didn't change in our relationship per se, but it certainly changed in how we operate. And now I think what the U.S. has done here by pulling the rug out from under us and making very outlandish threats against our sovereignty and all the things that your listeners are familiar with has forced us to say, we need to do our own thing better. We need to exert ourselves. We need to have our elbows up. We're not just fighting with the United States. We're protecting ourselves and doing the things that we've had trouble doing over many decades now, to exert our own place in this world, to shore up our own economy, to get rid of these silly disagreements between provinces about trade, to extend our trade corridors beyond just north-south, but try to look to our other partners with we have free trade as well. All that stuff that's to me what the elbows up is about. It's not just getting into some kind of nosebleed fight with the United States at every opportunity.
Okay, well, part of that, building a more resilient Canadian economy, is Bill C-5. There are two parts of it. The building one Canadian economy part, bringing down interprovincial trade barriers, eliminating pan-Canadian regulations, those sorts of things. And the other is the projects in the national interest part of that legislation. And as I say, it's getting a lot of heated criticism for both the left and the right. You have the progressive political parties are not happy with it. Indigenous leadership is not happy with it. Environmentalists are not happy with it. The Conservatives are signaling a willingness to help this pass before the end of the week. Before the end of the week, with all of 2 hours of committee time. What do you think about the Conservatives being willing to help the Liberals pass this piece of legislation, Bill C-5? Ashton?
Yeah, I mean, personal opinion, I love it. The legislation's two distinct parts, but, I think you've fairly pointed out the item that everyone wants to talk about is the ability to streamline, quote, projects of national interest. I think it's smart legislation. I think it's long overdue. The Conservative Party of Canada wants major projects to move in the country as well. They had their own plan to do so with economic corridors and repeal of C-69, C-48. Obviously, the election did not go their way, and so for them, supporting legislation to, streamline bureaucracy and actually get shovels in the ground makes all the sense in the world. Going against this type of legislation, I don't think would be very conservative at all. So I think it's a good bill.
Okay. Jeff Turner, what do you think?
I think, the Conservatives ideologically are the only people who could ever have supported this, no matter which way you cut it, in the bill in its current form or any kind of intention of fast-tracking approvals through the multiple layers of consultation that we have now that can see up to 5 to 10 years of process layered on top, and a process that has an opportunity to say no at every single step of the way. And I think that's, again, what we heard in that elbows-up domestic economy context was, let's stop finding reasons to say no to everything multiple steps along the way, and let's find a way to say yes to things that are nationally important. So, I've been advising my clients and the people I talk to saying, the only way this gets through the House in an orderly fashion is through a time allocation motion, and the only people who would support that are the Conservatives. And what I said is I'm not sure the Conservatives can get over themselves because they like to just knee-jerk react and oppose everything that Liberals might propose. But here's an inside secret in Ottawa. This bill was written by the Civil Service. It's not a creation of Mark Carney. It was written by the Civil Service to try to propose to a Conservative government that everybody expected for the last year to say, don't repeal Bill C-69. That's a terrible idea because repealing Bill C-69 would just throw the whole system into decades of turmoil in court cases. So this is the reasonable policymakers' approach to trying to bridge the gap between what the Conservatives have been proposing and a real way of progressing with that idea in government. And in comes Mark Carney with his idea of accelerating things and finding pathways through all those layers to make more speedy outcomes on projects that are of national significance, on many reasons why they should be important and why they should go ahead. And that's what that bill does.
All right. Very interesting. Pierre Poilievre will face a leadership review in January, according to reports. What do you think of the timing? And do you think his leadership of the Conservative Party is in any jeopardy at all? Ashton, what would you say?
On timing, it was either going to be late fall or early spring. It seems like they landed somewhere in the middle. It's in Calgary. Let's see what the lead up to that looks like. In terms of his likelihood of success, 99.9 at this point. I don't think there are any serious threats to his leadership at this point in time, and I'd be surprised if any bubbled up. I think Ms. Poilievre is doing a pretty good job at conducting his own post-mortem of the election. He's calling around candidates that were unsuccessful and checking in on those that ultimately were successful. So I'm just not really seeing any viable challengers, and I think the membership will understand that. So I think they will continue to support his leadership.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, you'll be surprised to know I disagree. Listen, I think Pierre Poilievre's in serious trouble. Really? I don't think he's in serious trouble because there's somebody nipping at his heels or there's a movement to unseat him. I think, if anything, the last election just demonstrated to us as he squared off against Mark Carney, now the Prime Minister Carney, and was seen to be completely wanting in that special sauce of what it takes to be PM. And I think the challenge is that it's not the tactical errors, it's not the strategic errors, it's not the loss of a few hundred votes here and there that didn't do it. People out there, not partisans like Ashton and I, but people out there took a look at him and said, I don't like that guy. I don't want him as my prime minister. He doesn't seem like the kind of person who would fit in well at the G7 we just watched in the last 2 days, welcoming all those people from around the world and being that kind of prime ministerial. Being a prime minister and having it is not because you want it. It's because you are it. And it takes time to do that. It takes time to build that up. And you see that in many politicians and prime ministers past. But I don't see it in Pierre Poilievre, and I think the people didn't see it either. And that's the fundamental problem. He can have his lock on the party, but he ain't going to win the next one if he doesn't figure out how to be a prime minister.
Okay, but the question: do you think his leadership of the party is in jeopardy?
Well, I wish him luck because I think if he runs in another election, he's not going to win it. And I think the party is probably pretty sick of losing at this point.
Okay. Very interesting. Hey, thank you so much. Great to hear from both of you today. Really interesting discussion. We'll speak soon. All the best.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks, Rob.
Bye-bye.
Great to be back.
Yeah.
Bye, Ashton.
That's Jeff Turner. He's vice president at Blue Sky Strategy Group, and Ashton Arsenault is partner at Crestview Strategies. And Talkback is coming up right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. 2 hours of debate and discussion about the big issues of the day. Today's topic, Canada and the United States, and elbows up. Elbows up. Elbows up. Here's what we want to know today. Get a better understanding of with your help. When it comes to your view of the United States and Donald Trump and the president, do you still have your elbows up? Did you ever have your elbows up? In other words, are you avoiding traveling to the United States? Lots of reports about that. Are you trying to avoid buying products made by American companies? Lots of reports about that. Are you doing that? Were you doing that? Still doing that? Did you never do that? Did you never put your elbows up? That's one angle that we want to explore today. Do you have your elbows up? Did you ever have your elbows up? And the other is the whole politics of elbows up. If you think back to the last election campaign and that big comeback for the Liberals, a lot of people will say that's because of the way Mark Carney talked about Donald Trump and our relationship with the United States. I mean, it was all over the news all the time. Whenever Donald Trump would talk about making Canada the 51st state. And Mark Carney had a lot of opinions about Donald Trump and the United States and our relationship with the United States. Let's listen to what Mark Carney was saying during the election campaign about Donald Trump and our relationship with the United States under Donald Trump.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over.
President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us.
It's my solemn promise that when President Trump threatens us again, we will fight back. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country.
We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right, elbows up. Elbows up.
Elbows up. Mark Carney was saying things like our relationship with the United States as we once knew it is over, that we can't count on the United States anymore. We need to find new opportunities for Canada that doesn't include the United States. He did that election ad with the Canadian actor Mike Myers. They're in the hockey rink. They're wearing the Team Canada hockey jersey. They're saying elbows up, elbows up. Well, now since then, there have been 2 one-on-one meetings between Donald Trump and Mark Carney. They seem to be getting along quite well. Donald Trump seems to get along with Mark Carney a lot better than he did with Justin Trudeau. And let's listen to the way Mark Carney treats Donald Trump.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO. The history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker. Happy birthday. A few days short.
A little bit.
A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. The G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership.
With your leadership. You hear that first meeting, the Oval Office, Washington, back in May, Mark Carney calling Donald Trump a transformational president. I suppose you can interpret that any number of ways. And then the G7 yesterday, there's Mark Carney wishing Donald Trump a happy birthday, welcoming Trump to the summit, saying the G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership and your personal leadership. That's what he said. We just heard it on tape. And we know, because it's been reported, that Donald Trump and Mark Carney, they've been speaking one-on-one about a deal between Canada and the United States. Nothing's come from that so far. Just a pledge to try and get something done, maybe within the next 30 days. We still have tariffs on Canadian exports to the United States. When Canadian officials were asked yesterday straight up if Donald Trump still thinks Canada should be the 51st state, they wouldn't even answer the question. But look, Mark Carney's tough talk about Donald Trump is a big reason why it's Prime Minister Mark Carney and not Prime Minister Pierre Poilievre. Poilievre was viewed, it's been said, as being too Trump-like, sounded too much like Trump. He was too Trumpy. They wanted someone who would talk tough about Donald Trump and put their elbows up against what was seen as a threat to Canadian sovereignty. And Mark Carney and the Liberals won the election. Fantastic comeback. And the whole elbows up thing, that was a big part of the election campaign. Almost every election ad from the Liberal Party was about how Canada was facing the biggest crisis of our lives with the Trump administration in the United States. But now these two leaders, I mean, they seem to be getting along quite well. Do you think Mark Carney has his elbows up, or is it elbows down now for Mark Carney? Do you think all the talk about Trump and the biggest crisis of our lives and elbows up, was it fear-mongering by the Carney campaign to win the election? What would you say? Mark Carney seems willing to even flatter and praise Donald Trump. Does Mark Carney still have his elbows up when it comes to dealing with the President of the United States? Do you think he really had his elbows up? Or was it just an act? Because there was an election campaign. This is what we want to explore today. We can only do that with your help. Let's go to Stratford. Susan is up first today in Stratford, Ontario. Hello, Susan.
Hello, Rob.
Hi, Susan.
Yeah, so elbows up have always been up since Trump got in, and they will continue to stay up. We always take a road trip to the States. We're staying in Canada this year. We don't buy American unless it's absolutely necessary.
Okay.
And I do believe that Mark Carney still has his elbows up. The guy is a dictator. He has the biggest ego ever, and you have to work with him. So he's being diplomatic and stroking his ego to support Canada and get the best deal he can. I mean, you can't not talk to the man. So you have to deal with him whether you like it or not. And the best way to do that is diplomacy. And he's stroking his ego because that's what works for Trump.
Okay. It doesn't put you off in any way or make you wonder about Mark Carney and whether he meant all those things he said?
Well, what's the alternative? Not to speak to him at all? And he's going to, you have to negotiate with the man, unfortunately. And, he's doing what he has to do. I don't believe for 1 minute that Mark Carney has become Donald Trump's best friend. That's ludicrous. I mean, you got to deal with him. And the best way to deal with that is to stroke his ego. And that's exactly what he's doing.
Fair enough, Susan. You've got us off to a good start today on Talkback on the topic. Harold is up next. Also a first-time caller today in Alberta. Hello, Harold.
Hey, good morning. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Harold. Thanks for calling on elbows up. Did you ever have your elbows up? You still have your elbows up?
Well, I'm concerned about our Prime Minister. I think that people have been snowballed. If you do a little research, they call him Carnage Carney in UK and England. And if you look at his background and what he's planned for Canada, he is a spender and not a saver, and he loves big government and high taxes. So if you want to continue down that line, then I guess that's the way it's going to go. far as Donald Trump goes, he's done some good things, but he's done some silly things, and tariffs are silly. So we have to deal with it, as the lady before said, but I think there's stronger personalities available in governments that can deal with Donald Trump other than Mark Carney. His true colors will come through here shortly.
Okay, but he certainly talked tough about Donald Trump in the United States. Under Donald Trump, he wants to break us so he can own us and all of this stuff. Do you think that was just a facade? Was that just for the election campaign? What do you think?
That was a facade. It was for the election campaign, and he played up on fear-mongering, and that's not how we should run Canada. Canada's a beautiful spot. Donald Trump was here for a day. Who wouldn't want Canada? But it isn't going to happen. It just scared a bunch of people into voting for Mark Carney, which was a huge mistake. Okay. Just personally yourself, do you have your elbows up? Are you avoiding American goods or travel to the United States? Are you partaking in any kind of boycott or anything like that? I sold my property in the United States because I just felt that I wanted to be out of the country, and COVID had a lot to do with that. And I buy Canadian when I can, and I don't plan to have any trips to the United States, and I do have family there. But if they want to see me, I guess they'll have to come to me. Okay, fair enough. Thank you so much for your call as well today, Harold, and being a first-time caller to Talkback. So there you go. We're off and running today, and there are 2 free lines available. Elbows up. You have your elbows up? Does Mark Carney have his elbows up? And Mike is up next. Hello, Mike. You're on the air. What's your opinion, please?
Hi, Rob. I just retired from a career in the information technology industry after 43 years. Nearly 30 of those years were at ArcelorMittal, which acquired Dofasco in Hamilton.
Okay. Yep.
We went through this in the first Trump term with his tariffs and stuff, and when he increased it up to 50%, my elbows will definitely be staying up. I have avoided buying American products. I will choose another product over an American product if available. On a major purchase recently, my family, on my cousin's business, they needed a new forklift. They didn't get an American-made one.
Okay.
And I got a new vehicle. I didn't get an American-made one. And I have relatives in the United States. They're asking me to come down. I'm saying, sorry, not coming down.
Okay.
Don't want to support you.
Okay.
But Mr. Carney talked real tough during the election campaign. I'm willing to give him some rope, right?
Okay.
First of all, the deal is close. Now it's going to be done in 30 days. We need to diversify our trading partners and stuff like that.
Yes.
Well, I'd like to see some results or steps towards those results, and I'm not seeing them. You know what I mean?
Okay.
We're going to have infrastructure projects, and then we got EV out there. Oh, we're not building a pipeline. No.
Okay.
So I want to see some of these infrastructure projects take off. I want to see some of these new trade relationships. I want to see if Trump is stringing Carney along, his butt kissing won't do any good because Trump every day will get off his toilet and tweet something, and the agreement will be null and void. So I would like to see Mr. Carney take a much tougher stand if at the end of these 30 days we don't get anything. Because if you don't hurt the Trump voter, Trump's not going to pay attention to you. And that's my thoughts, Rob.
All right. Very good thoughts. Thank you. Mike, 1-833-668-2577 to join the discussion here on Talkback. Linda in Southern Alberta up next. Hi, Linda.
Hi.
Hi, Linda.
Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
Just a couple things. Well, first of all, let's talk about elbows up. It was given to Gordie Howe because he was a dirty player. not because he was a perfect defenseman. I'll leave it at that. But now you're talking about Carney, and was it political rhetoric? Of course it was. But he has switched over to diplomacy, which, by the way, our Premier, Daniel Smith, was the only one of the Canadian leaders who had any diplomacy when he won the election and was down talking to counterparts in order to shore up whatever trading partners that we had. The other thing I wanted to say, just with regard to Canadians so upset about Trump, first of all, an overwhelming majority of Americans voted Trump in because they didn't feel they were getting looked after. Americans weren't getting looked after. That's why he got in. And people here want to blame Trump. So let's just take a couple examples I can give you and talk about how Canadians didn't lead. So, for instance, the beef association, when Mad Cow happened and the U.S. border was completely closed to us, 90% of our beef or whatever it was being traded with them. What was wrong with the farmers who elected their beef association leaders in, who put 80% of their trading ability into one client? Nobody in a portfolio puts 80% into one stock. I can tell you that. Oil and gas was the same, and it took a little. It took a little. A journalist from Vancouver, Vivian Krause, who produced over a barrel.
Look, we're really tight on time. We're gonna run out of time here, so I'll have to end our conversation there. But I do thank you for your call. You make some great points. Elbows up. We'll be right back.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about elbows up today, the whole thing about elbows up, avoiding American goods traveling to the United States. Have you done that? Are you still doing it? Did you ever do it? And Prime Minister Carney, and the way he was talking during the election campaign about Donald Trump and the way he talks now about Donald Trump, they certainly seem to be getting along well. So was Mark Carney's tough talk about Donald Trump just an act because there was an election campaign happening? Is this just the nature of the beast? Now you have to be diplomatic with Donald Trump. For example, let's listen. This was Mark Carney on Trump and the U.S. before he won the election.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. It's my solemn promise that when President Trump threatens us again, we will fight back. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right, elbows out. Elbows up.
Elbows up. And now this is how he talks to Trump these days.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO. The history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker.
Happy birthday. A few days short. A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. The G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, and working hand in hand with the United States.
Yeah. It's the happy birthday that gets me. I'm sorry, there's something about that just gets me. Happy birthday, Mr. President. If only he had jumped out of a cake and said that. 1-833-668-2577. Eric in Halifax up next. Eric.
Hey, how you doing this afternoon,
I'm
Rob?
good. Eric, great. Thanks.
Well, all the sucking up and all the putting Trump on a pedestal ain't going to help him. In 30 days, that's just another way to buy time. And I don't know, man. The man is a hypocrite. hypocrite. 1 minute he says this, and the next minute he goes back and, gives the man a pat in the back and wishes him a happy birthday and everything else. I think he's scared of Trump.
Okay.
And I mean, he says, well, if you do something, we're going to take. What kind of force is he going to use? He's got nothing in his weaponry. So talking like that is stupid, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. What about yourself when you're going out shopping or doing any traveling or whatnot?
Oh, I can't afford to go across the street as far as traveling goes. And as far as buying American stuff, no, I look for Canadian stuff.
You do.
And I buy Canadian stuff as much as I can. Like
okay.
I'm a senior citizen and I live on $35,000 a year, so I can't afford a little pot to pee in.
Okay, but let's say you're in the grocery store and you have a choice between product A and it's made in the USA and you have product B and it's made in Canada, but the made in Canada product's more expensive. What do you buy?
Well, it all depends what it is. And
okay.
That's what I take in because, like I say, I'm a senior citizen, so I have to pick and choose what I can get, and I have to look for the deals. And if there's a deal in Canada, I'm going to buy it, or I'm not going to buy it. Either one of the two. It's affordability as far as I'm concerned.
All right, Eric. Thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577 to join this discussion on Elbows Up today here on Talkback. 2 lines available. The wait won't be too long. To Calgary now. Matt is up first in Calgary here. Hi, Matt. Hey, Matt.
Hey, can you hear me?
I hear you just fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah, I think it's diplomacy. I really think, I think Trump has strong traits of like narcissistic personality disorder. I'm not the only one that has this view. A lot of famous psychologists came on TV and they said he definitely does. So I think Carney's really well aware of this. And I think he's just being tactful,
Okay.
He's trying to engage with Trump in a way that appeals to his narcissism, right? It's diplomacy, right?
Okay.
It really reminds me, there's a famous scene in The Silence of the Lambs. You know that movie?
Yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Sure.
Hannibal Lecter, really brilliant guy, right? And he's behind bars. And there's the young detective, and she praises his intelligence. Say, Hannibal, you're a really brilliant guy. And Hannibal gets pissed off. He says, well, you caught me. You put me in jail. You must think you're more intelligent than I am. And her reply is, no, you just have a glaring weakness. And he says, oh, yeah, what's that? And she says, well, you're insane. So
okay.
I think, as brilliant, as powerful as Trump is, whatever, he's got the world behind him. I think his weak point really is his personality. I don't think he's as unpredictable as people think. I think if you do appeal to his narcissism, then you can get shit done. So that's my opinion.
This flattery, you're a transformational president, your leadership, happy birthday, Mr. It's just to butter him up, kind of to play to his ego. Yeah, okay. So let me ask you, with the elbows up, I mean, are you doing anything with elbows up when it comes to avoiding buying American products or traveling to the United States or anything like that?
I had a bad experience a long time ago, right after 9/11. I'm from Windsor area, went over to Detroit, and my buddy just happened to be wearing like these military cargo pants, and we got thrown in a room and like guns pointed at us because they're so paranoid.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Ever since then,
you're a little wary about traveling to the U.S. anyway.
Yeah, they're and then they're a bit paranoid, a little bit different culture. I love the American people, beautiful places, but don't go there so often. Yeah,
I gotcha. Okay, thank you. To Southern Alberta, Matt up next in Southern Alberta. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm good, Matt. Thank you. What would you say?
Good. Yeah, obviously Carney has to be diplomatic. I wasn't a fan of his. The reason Trump got elected in is because the Liberals down there were messing over their country, just like Trudeau was messing over our country. Carney had to pivot. I've never understood the whole elbows up term. I think it's a stupid term.
Okay.
I've never, I understand about, not buying American, but I've never understood how that correlated correspond together. But I don't trust Carney. I never have trusted Carney, and he did manipulate I think Canadians during the election with the whole elbows up thing, and Trump's so bad, boo, but he does have to be diplomatic to get a fair deal for Canada and for the U.S. So, as for not shopping in the States, my family has a home down in the States, and we've been down there several times. We bring back hundreds of dollars worth of American products because we can't get them here, and there's no elbows up in our household.
No elbows up. Okay. Thank you very much. In Southern Alberta, Matt today. In Calgary, Liz up next. Hello, Liz.
Hello.
Hi, Liz. What would you say?
So elbows up in our family. I'm married to an American, actually, and we have 2 children that both have their dual citizenship. We have no plans to ever go back to the U.S. My husband is mortified and embarrassed, and we shop Canadian, even though we live paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes Canadian items are more expensive. We still shop Canadian. And when it comes to Carney, and I sound like a lot of people that have been calling in have never actually personally ever dated or dealt with a narcissist. I have been in a couple of abusive relationships with narcissists. Carney is being very diplomatic, stroking his ego and handling him perfectly. With narcissists, they tend to fly off the handle if you don't.
Okay. Because there is some belief that Mark Carney's tough talk about Donald Trump, that was just an act because the election campaign was on. What do you think about that?
I'm sure part of it had to do with that, but he now face to face, he has no choice but to stroke his ego and be diplomatic about everything. Trump is a wild card. He's dangerous, and if he handled it any differently, things would be very ugly for Canada.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Good to hear from you, Liz. Yeah. Very much elbows up at Liz's place. Not so much at Matt's place. What about at Ken's place? Ken is in Cochrane today. Hello, Ken.
Hey, Rob. I
Ken.
too am married to an American citizen, and in our house, and I'm probably about an 8th, 9th generation Canadian, maybe 10, and it's not elbows up at our house. I think the elbows up term applies more to having a feeling of being elbows up against Laurentian elites, not U.S. People at all. Yes, I agree that our fight was with the president, but I think that he was actually making a point that, and I think the reason that he was trolling particularly Trudeau is it's obvious that he doesn't like Trudeau. Even in his
that's abundantly clear now. Yeah.
Sure, and the other, the 51st state thing, I don't think he was serious, but I think his point was likely, look, Canada, if you're not going to pull up your own socks and pull your own weight in terms of your UN commitments and, other types of irritants that, we have against trade, et cetera, then why are you your own country? Like, if we have to protect you, if you can't defend yourself, then why are you your own country? It's something that I think Western Canadians always have sort of tried to explain to other Canadians. Look, we need to elect a different government here, a conservative government that's going to support our military, et cetera, et cetera. Now, that doesn't mean, okay, fine, we're basically getting Carney now to kind of come to the right a little bit. But I do believe that our Prime Minister, our current Prime Minister, is a bit of an opportunist, and he got caught in a number of lies, with Brookfield way in the beginning, and a number of other things during the election campaign. I'm not certain he was actually really that sincere about the elbows up thing in the first place. I think that was a ploy. He almost seems now like he's being a little bit of a sycophant. When you go out of your way to cajole and wish somebody a happy belated birthday and all this sort of stuff. That's a nice thing to do, but somebody who basically said that he was going to be elbows up certainly that's not even close, right?
Okay.
I mean, you could
All
be
right.
diplomatic
Gotcha.
and still, be elbows up. Anyway, that's all I have.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
very
you,
much.
Ken. Thank you for your call today. Bob in Calgary. Hello, Bob. You're on the air. What's your opinion?
How you doing today?
Good, Bob. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, so I'm with 2/3 of your Calgary audience here. I think elbows up is a bad idea or a stupid idea, I guess.
Okay.
But if people would realize how much we rely on the United States or how much, the trade goes back and forth, and if we got them to reciprocate, we would be in so much trouble here. Like the Stampede alone, half of our visitors are from the U.S. And, for myself, the culture shock east and west is far greater than north and south. Like the Americans are our best trading partners. There's a lot of commonality between Canada and the United States and a lot of working relationship between Canada and the United States. The last thing we need is a bunch of people running around saying, hey, we don't need these guys, because bottom line, we do.
Okay. What do you think about what Mark Carney was saying, say, during the election campaign and how he seems to be getting along with Trump now? What do you think about that?
During the election campaign, it was a total scam, in my opinion. The Liberals had a 40-point or a 30-point deficit, and he picked on the Trump thing because, for whatever reason, people react to that, and it's easy to hate because Hollywood tells us to hate him. And he tried to separate himself from Trudeau so that we weren't electing another corrupt Liberal government in there that was just going to tax and spend. And he tricked everybody, and the first thing he does is start spending like crazy. And there's no austerity in his thoughts, and he did kick off the president of the United States, which is a really bad idea, whether it's Trump or Biden or whoever happens to be around that place. You don't want to insult them or push them around, and and thinking that Ukraine's our friend or France is our friend or someone else is our friend if we do get into a conflict with the United States is more than short-sighted, in my opinion.
Okay, thank you. I want to take one more call before the news at the top of the hour. It's to Nova Scotia we go. Keith, you're up next. Hi, Keith.
Hi, Rob.
Hi,
How
Keith.
are you today?
I'm good, Keith. Good to hear from you. Do you have your elbows up, Keith?
Well, I'm doing what I can. What little bit I do individually doesn't really make a whole lot of difference. I'm not traveling to the U.S. I don't want to go to the U.S. I try to buy what I can. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you just fine, Keith. Yep.
Okay, because I have my phone turned down.
Okay.
But yeah, I buy as much as I can locally, but so my elbows are probably not doing a whole lot of good. I just do what I can. Now you were asking the question about
about Mark Carney and what he was saying during the election campaign, and now he seems to be getting along really well with Donald Trump. What do you think of that? Does he elbows up?
I think Carney has a little bit over 3.5 years or roughly to deal with this guy.
Okay.
And a lot of things can be said and done in 3.5 years. So I think Carney knows that he's dealing with, like everybody says, that he's got the ego and narcissism.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure he's dealt with people like that in his career. But this guy is the most powerful man on the planet, and he lives right next door. So I think Carney's elbows maybe are in the middle.
In the middle.
I think
okay.
he has to.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Keith, they're playing the music. We'll have to run now. Carney's elbows are in the middle. Good way to end hour number one. Hour number two just ahead. 3 lines available there. Grab one and join us on Talkback on News Radio.
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number two of Talkback. Lines available at 1-833-668-2577. We're talking about elbows up today. That's the theme for the day. The topic for the day is elbows up. In other words, personally, are you avoiding buying American goods, traveling to the United States? Are you doing that? Did you ever do that? Give us a sense of what's happening at your place. And then there's Prime Minister Mark Carney. When you see how well he seems to get along with Donald Trump, do you think Mark Carney still has his elbows up? Certainly a lot of talk about having elbows up against Donald Trump in the United States during the election campaign. Do you think all of that tough talk about Donald Trump by Mark Carney was just an act because there was an election campaign underway? What do you think? Give us your opinion on this topic today, hour number 2. Let's get things going. 3 lines available, and we'd love to hear from you, and especially first-time callers at 1-833-668-2577 to Jason in Calgary today. Hi, Jason. You're up next. What's your opinion, Jason?
Hi. Yeah. Well, I'm a military brat, if anyone knows the term.
Sure.
So I've lived across this country. I've moved every 2 years with my family through Alberta to Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Northwest Territories, and back again, Ontario.
Right. You're like a Stop and Time song,
I've
sir.
seen this country over my 40 years of life.
Yes.
And I love Canada, and I think that Canada's got the right idea. And I think elbows up is only the term, in fact, to counter the mega situation that's going down in the States. It's not against America. My family has a business in America. We are dual citizens. My grandfather dog fought the Russians in Germany during the Cold War. My dad worked on the F-18s up in Cold Lake. We also were posted sometimes down in the States, in North Carolina and Florida and things like that. But America is not a bad place. And it's not filled with bad people.
No,
but right now, the
course not.
ideology of this mega, us versus them kind of crap is, made it so that we have to put our elbows up too.
Okay. So at your place these days, how is that playing out? How would you say you have your elbows up? What are you doing?
Well, I always try to buy Canadian.
Okay.
I'm always in support of whatever I see as kind of a Canadian product, and I'm certainly staying away from corporate, American-backed companies. I'm not even going to Tim Hortons because I know that's there. I go to local. Support local. That's how I'm doing elbows up. Is right now, Canada's money needs to stay in Canada, needs to be with its community, with its partners, with its neighbors.
What do you think about how Mark Carney is dealing with Donald Trump? He certainly talked in pretty stark terms about Donald Trump. The relationship is never going to be the same. He wants to break us so he can own us, all of this.
Third face. Are you kidding? To be a politician is to be like water. You have to sometimes just, when you're in a situation, you have to kind of go with the flow as it is, because you're dealing with, Trump's an idiot. But he's also got so much power that you have to at least cater to his ideas in a sense of, oh, yes, sir. Yes, well, we understand. Yes, America is trying to change the world, and you're doing such a great job, blah, blah, blah. For yourself, whatever. Well, we have to do what we have to do. And if it means that, yes, we do, for the longest time, the military has been kind of like picked apart since Trudeau, Dad, got into power a long time ago, right? We've lost our sense of patriotism to that extent because we didn't think we needed a military, because we could just rely on the United States because they were the good guys. But as things have changed and the ideas of what America thinks the world should be like to what Canadians think the world should be like has changed. So I think right now, our best bet is to actually grow our military, grow our sense of national pride. Not to say that we should fight anybody, but we should protect everybody.
Okay. Thank you very much for your call. Very interesting call, Jason. And a great start to hour number 2 to Mark up next. You're on the air, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hello there.
Yeah. Hi, Mark. Are your elbows up?
Well, it's in reference to elbows up. Yeah, my elbows are up for sure. Definitely making a conscious effort to buy local, like your last caller said, and check labels and do day-to-day stuff that kind of makes you feel good. The other part of this is, you're asking about Carney's function and role, and is he still elbows up? I think at this point in time, rather than elbows up, we really need to think about giving Mark Carney some elbow room, because he's doing what he needs to do.
Okay.
He's handling Donald like a kindergarten kid.
Oh, really?
He's doing quite well. I think he's doing quite well. I think he's managing it quite well, and he seems to be well respected. And I'm very impressed with the man, quite frankly. I wasn't expecting this, and was very impressed with the way he's handling things.
Okay. And what is it that he's doing that impresses you?
Well, his demeanor, his tactics that he seems to play out, the concept of international trade not just being anchored in the United States relationship, but really looking at the global perspective of our trading partners in UK and Mexico. I'm really excited to hear what comes out of G7. And quite honestly, the fact that Donald Trump has left, I think it gives them a little more room to have conversation, and Trump doesn't steal all the oxygen out of the room. They can actually have some meaningful dialogue and form some relationships. And I think that it's a good thing that that Donald had to leave early. That's my pitch on it anyway.
Very good take. Thank you, Mark. Good to hear from you today. James in Calgary is up next. Hi, James.
Hey, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure, James. Go ahead. What's your opinion?
Well, don't like Mark Carney. Don't trust Mark
fair
Carney.
Enough. Okay.
But he's doing what he needs to do in regards to Donald Trump. Unlike his predecessor, who decided to thumb his nose at the American president, and we as Canadians paid the price, right? So he's handling Trump fairly well. I don't know if he's got him like a kindergarten kid. I don't think anybody really does. You just don't know what that guy's going to do next. So, yeah, I would have to say, as far as his dealings with Trump goes, 2 thumbs up. He's representing us the way he needs to.
Okay, and that's from someone who says they don't really like Mark Carney, but you're still willing to give him 2 thumbs up. Very interesting. Now, on this whole business of elbows up, avoiding buying American goods or traveling to the United States, what are you doing in that regard? Anything? Nothing?
Well, I'm not anti-American by any stretch of the imagination. Those are our friends down there. Trump's not going to be around forever. And, I think we should just be more Canadian about it. I'm not against buying Canadian, and I try and do that, but I'm not all for avoiding American products, or I don't have any plans to go to the States anytime soon, but if I did, I wouldn't be canceling them based upon who the president is. It would probably have more to do with the money.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you, James, for weighing in on our topic today. Great to hear from you. Jason up next. You're up, Jason. Hi there, Jason.
Hey, Rob. Thank you.
So
as far as elbows up go, unlike the last caller, my wife and I, we've actually canceled all of our U.S. travel plans. We usually go to Vegas at least once a year around Christmas time, so a nice pricey time for the economy to go down there. And so we've canceled that trip that we do at least once a year. And my wife, if she ever catches anything with product of the U.S. or that in our house, I hear about it.
Oh, really? You do? Okay. Like, how did this get here? Did you buy this? Okay. All right.
Yeah. So when it comes to purchasing American products, the only things that would ever come into our house that are made in the U.S. are things we cannot get from any other country.
Okay.
And
fair enough.
That's the principle in our house right now.
Okay.
But as far as Mark Carney goes,
yes,
I don't think he's playing him as a fiddle. I think he's very much, he understands Trump is reactionary. and he reacts quickly, but he's not playing it as let's make this quick, let's get a reaction, where I think that's where Trudeau played into the grandstanding of Trump, was he let him react to if he made a comment, where Carney keeps his comments regardless of what his thoughts are to himself. And it feels like it's more of a long game, more playing chess versus checkers.
Okay. And do you think Mr. Carney's doing a good job?
I think
at dealing
the
with
results
Trump
have to be proven out.
Okay.
I think his results have to be proven out. It is a little too early to tell, but it seems like he's getting him to the table, and it's not a quick response all the time, which the whiplash was starting to get to me here, that's for sure.
Right. Okay. All right. Great stuff. Good to hear from you, Jason.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Well, we've been having a great discussion today about this whole thing. Elbows up. And what you've been doing at home, and whether you have your elbows up, avoiding buying American goods, traveling to the United States. Are you doing that in your own house? Have you ever done that? Did you never really buy into that? Give us a sense of that. What's going on at your place? 1-833-668-2577. And then there's Prime Minister Mark Carney. And what we're hearing when he comes face to face with Donald Trump, and whether his elbows are really up, given how well the two seem to get along. Do you think Mark Carney's tough talk during the election about Donald Trump was an act? Was he fear-mongering because there was an election campaign underway? I mean, he was talking pretty tough about Donald Trump in the United States. Let's listen to what he was saying during the election campaign.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperations, is over. President Trump claims that Canada isn't a real country. He wants to break us so America can own us. It's my solemn promise that when President Trump threatens us again, we will fight back. We will respond forcefully. Nothing is off the table to defend our workers and our country. We're over the shock of the betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But let me ask you, Mr. Prime Minister, will there always be a Canada? There will always be a Canada. All right, elbows up.
Elbows up. Elbows up. Okay. Now, that last part was that Liberal election ad, and it's Mark Carney and it's Mike Myers, and they're in the Team Canada hockey jerseys, and it's elbows up, right? But then Mark Carney comes face to face with Donald Trump, first in the Oval Office, and then just yesterday in Kananaskis at the G7. Let's listen here.
Thank you for your hospitality and above all for your leadership. I'll say this as well, that the president has revitalized international security, revitalized NATO. The history of Canada and the U.S. is we're stronger when we work together, and there's many opportunities to work together, and I look forward to, addressing some of those issues that we have, but also finding those areas of mutual cooperation so we can move forward.
That's great. Very nice. Thank you very much. It's a very nice statement.
You're a transformational president, focus on the economy with a relentless focus on the American worker. Happy birthday. A few days short.
A little bit.
A few days short, but didn't have a chance to see you on the day. The G7 is nothing without U.S. leadership, and your personal leadership of the United States, and working hand in hand with the United States, Canada and the United States, and the other G7 partners with your leadership.
With your leadership. So does that sound like elbows up from Mark Carney? What do you think? Weigh in here. A few lines available there. 1-833-668-2577 on Elbows Up. Jersey Bill in Kitchener. Hello.
Why, hello. How are you?
Yeah,
of course, I'm an
good.
American, not a Trump supporter.
Yeah.
But I do think Mr. Carney's been handling him pretty well. And the thing is that about Trump is, you have to, he wants to be the hero. So, those things that Carney was just saying, Trump could step into the hero role. Unfortunately, it seems that Mr. Trump is still more enamored with Vladimir Putin than with any of the old allies of the West, including Canada. I don't know how to fix that, but that seems to be where he's stuck. Maybe he'll get unstuck if Putin doesn't do things that he wants, or he doesn't think Putin's treating him well. That may be the only reason that he comes in the direction of Canada and the European allies.
Okay. Now, what are you doing
elbows
with
up? My wife.
Yes.
My wife's originally from Nicaragua. She passed through the States. She didn't have a very good situation there, so she came up to Canada as an immigrant, and she really dislikes Trump. She dislikes the way he's treating her relatives who are still in the States. We try. The funny thing is, I was even in the stores they were putting produce from every place else but the States. But after a while, the grapes and the different fruits are going to come in from the States. What I say is, if it's coming from California, we see that California is being treated almost as badly as Trump was treating Canada. So
okay,
we can buy from California.
Okay, you'll buy from California. Okay, all right. Very interesting, Jersey Bill. Good to hear from you today. Thank you. In Kitchener, also in Waterloo today. Afif is in Waterloo. Hi there, Afif.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
I'm good. Do you have your elbows up?
Yeah. Oh, 1 second. I think your voice just got lowered. 1 second. There you go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you just fine. Do you have your elbows up? Are you doing elbows up things?
Sort of. So
sort
I do
of.
buy the only green type of stuff, but then again, I do go to U.S. to go meet my brothers, and because they live in the U.S., but I do that a little bit.
Okay. Have you had any problems crossing the border and back? Any issues there?
Oh, trust me, I've had issues crossing the border every time.
Every time.
Every time I try crossing the border, they do a full entire on my actual the ticket. It actually says quadruple SSS. So basically saying that this guy's a high security risk. So I basically have to go inside. I have to talk to the
really?
people for about an hour, and
wow.
It takes almost hour and a half just to talk to them and tell them, hey, yes, I'm only here to go meet my brothers and not for anything else.
Wow. Okay. All right. What do you think about how Mark Carney is dealing with Donald Trump? Is this a guy with his elbows up? What do you think?
Just like the first person said, yes, Mark Carney is trying to basically I'm going to put him in another type of word. He's trying to suck up to Trump. He's trying to make sure that Trump, makes the whole entire tariffs go away. Because think about it. When Doug Ford put his own tariffs on electricity,
yes,
Trump got an ego and he's like, oh, you did this, I'll put 50%. So that's what I mean. Mark Carney's like, hey, if I put more, he's gonna put more. He's gonna keep making higher because he doesn't care. He's Trump, and he wants to make sure that every country, he wants Canada, but we're not gonna give him Canada.
Okay. So you think Mark Carney's doing a good job dealing with Trump?
For now, yes.
For now, yeah. Okay.
We'll find out in a few
We'll find out. Okay. Very interesting. That's a very popular opinion today, though, that a lot of people think that Prime Minister Carney has no reason and maybe every reason to try and butter the man up and appeal to his, a popular word today, his narcissism. Is that how you feel? If so, call us 833-668-2577. Dawn is up next. Hello, Dawn. What would you say?
Hi, Rob. Thanks for
Hi,
taking
Dawn.
my call.
My pleasure.
So the elbows up, when I first heard it, I thought it was really hokey. And then I watched when Carney first said that. And I think that he meant it in a sports analogy, where when you're running defense, you have your elbows up. And if you go back to a sports analogy, you don't always run defense. There are times where you run offense.
Fair enough. Okay. That's interesting. Way to look at it.
And he's gaining my respect bit by bit.
Yes. Okay.
You know, as the rubber meets the road. I'm very impressed that he is on board with getting our defense up, because I think it's absolutely hilarious that we are the richest country in the world and don't have any defense.
Okay. Okay.
And that is comforting to know. And watching him stick handle Trump, he lets Trump run off, and he finds out what he's thinking that day and what mood he's in that day. He knows how far he can go that day.
Okay.
And he doesn't push his buttons.
Right. Right.
So I think that if there is a chance of a deal to be done, I think that it is Mark Carney that will do it. And I also like the fact that he listens to Poilievre.
Listens to Poilievre
Poilievre suggests.
Well, he certainly has taken on a number of the Poilievre policies, for sure.
So in my mind, that tells me he's putting Canada first.
Okay. Now, with the elbows up thing, you said you thought it was a little hokey, but are you avoiding buying American things, or would you normally travel to the United States, but you're not going to do that? Give us a sense of what's happening. Yes?
I'll fly around it. I buy anything except American. And I've said to my family, we have to change our tastes until the tariff thing goes away.
Okay.
But I think that if we don't boycott, we have no power. And I think that, putting another tariff just is a lose-lose. I think that boycotting is our power.
All right. Really interesting call, Dawn. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion today. Mark Carney winning over a lot of people who I don't think would normally have voted Liberal in the last election. I think that's coming through loud and clear today. Let's go to Mike and see what his opinion is. Let's listen to Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi there.
Yeah. Hi, Mike. Good to hear from you today. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, I think Canadians got duped by Mark Carney.
Okay.
I think it was a huge mistake voting Liberal again, and I think we're all going to pay for it. It's just a matter of time.
Okay, duped. When you say duped, would you say the tough talk about Donald Trump, was that part of the duping?
Yep. He played us. I mean, he ended the reciprocal tariffs on April 16th quietly. There wasn't, I don't think a lot of Canadians were aware of that. And, he talked a tough talk, but, we're still got 50% tariffs on aluminum and steel, and who knows when it's going to end. And, I'm just glad I live in Alberta. I know that, but
okay.
I just can't believe Canadians voted again for the Liberal government.
Right. A lot of people are impressed with the way he's handling Donald Trump. Flattering him and praising him, and wishing him a happy birthday. These sort of, not you, no,
not me. I think
not
it's
you?
all an act, and I think Canadians are going to be awfully sorry in the near future.
What about elbows up at your place? Do you do any of that?
Nope. Don't believe in it.
Okay. You're totally the opposite of the previous caller. Isn't that something?
Good,
okay.
Because I think
all right.
There needs to be a change.
Needs to be a change. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you. Isn't that something? Two callers in the same segment with polar opposite views.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yeah, great discussion today about elbows up, what you're doing in your own home about elbows up, and whether you're avoiding buying American products, traveling to the United States, whether people really bought into that or not. A lot of people who called today certainly have and still do. And Prime Minister Carney, whether he has his elbows up against Donald Trump, given how well the two seem to be getting along early in their leader-to-leader relationship. Let's go to Gary. He's in Kitchener. Hi, Gary. Good to hear from you, Gary. Yeah, hi, Gary.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Well, first of all,
I don't know for sure, but if you check it out, I think Mark Carney and Trump's son do investments together because he handled a lot of Trump stuff when he was in the United States. And the problem is, he's acting like he never knew this guy. He knew the family. He knew them over in England. They even visited the Queen over there, the Trump family, with Carney. And anyway, Trump and Carney, sure they get along. Carney conned us. It's a liberal government. I cannot believe we bought Carney the con man, all his rhetoric, and look at that. He's in there now. It's terrible. We got Carney in there, and he's sitting in Alberta, bending over to Trump, who is a convicted killer. And I had a friend who's 30 years ago in Ontario got a drug charge against him for marijuana 30 years ago. Last year, they turned him away at the border because of that charge. He tried to go to Disney with his kids. Now, our country is in bad shape. We need to do a lot more here with our justice system than Carney and his liberal. We're going to pay dearly.
Okay. So let me ask you. Let me ask you, Gary. You have very passionate opinions on this.
For maintenance on a New York condo, crazy.
Right. Okay. I want to ask you a little bit because, certainly Mark Carney was talking tough about Donald Trump. He wants to break us so he could own us. It was a betrayal. All of this stuff during the election campaign. So do you think he was just whipping up fear about Donald Trump?
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay.
You can read that. You can read that all day long, and I hate to say it, but the problem is, we a bunch of us even sat out and didn't want to vote this year because of that con job, and he
Okay.
Yeah.
What about a lot of people have called today and said, no, I'm not buying anything that's made in America. We usually travel to the United States. We're not going anymore. Are you doing any of that?
Well, the problem is, I don't think I'm going to see Uncle Mickey for about four and a half years.
Okay. Why is that?
Does that answer your question?
What do you mean by that?
Well, Trump's got a 4-year period, so we're not traveling to the States for at least 4 years.
You're not. You've sworn it off then. Okay. So you are doing elbows up.
Buy anything. No.
Right.
Nope,
You.
Why not?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Interesting. You are doing elbows up, Gary. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Gary, no love for Donald Trump, but also no love lost for Mark Carney as well. Very, very good talk back today. I really, really enjoyed that. I'm glad we could get into that today. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new topic and more of your calls. It's a very busy news day today. There's a lot happening in the news. We're going to get you right up to date. Coming up next, I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.